Hello class, aren't you excited today? I'm really excited today. I'm having an amazing day actually. I've had some good news and so my day is going great. Your day should be going great. Now with that out the way, let's go on to the first lesson of today. So we're going over areas of operation 6, navigations, task A and B. So what does that mean precisely? Well, that means I'm gonna be teaching you what are the dangers to navigation. And the reason why I say that is because yes, I'll be teaching you about navigation, but the important part is the dangers. Because you can do your navigation nice and easy, and I'll show you how to do it nice and easy, but I'm gonna also introduce other factors as well that you should consider. All right? Some prerequisites that I'm just gonna get out the way, okay? The main thing most people are gonna talk about, like when you're doing all these calculations and stuff, and like on your knowledge test, and when you get asked these questions on how to do these navigations, cross-country questions, you're gonna be having to use an E6P, all right? This is an E6P, the electrical one, not the little metal scrolly wheel one. I mean, you can do that. You can figure it out if you want to, but I recommend doing this. It's an easy calculator. Yes, it's gonna cost you some money, but I've been using this since my private days, okay? And this thing has lasted me a good time. This is a good investment to have when you're starting out your training, okay? Don't sleep on it. Something nice to get. Now, the main thing people are going to talk about is pilotage and dead reckoning. I've had some images up here, not sure if you can see them, but the first thing about pilotage is that you're basically using your eyes. It's visual references, you're flying out there, and you're like, let me follow this freeway. There's that really big statue that's I can see from all the way up here that's a known visual reference point. You know on here, if you're able to read sectional charts, you can know that these visual identification points are some like red flag. That's how you can recognize them. But I'm gonna be honest, a lot of my pilotage uses freeways, if I'm gonna be honest. And I drew some eyes here, so to help you visually understand, eyes, this is how you're seeing pilotage. Okay, now we have the other combination, which is dead reckoning. I drew like a little nerd up here, like, actually, and that's because it requires a lot of calculations and math. So you're solely referencing on like, okay, if I'm flying at so-and-so speed, and this is the amount of time that I'm here, and at this altitude, if I'm descending at this rate, and you're using a lot of these calculations purely to determine your position and how long the trip is going to take you and where you're at. And I like to think if that's still not enough to go in your head like pilotage, dead reckoning, the difference. If you mess up those calculations, let's just say you're dead. Okay, you're not It's not going to be going too well for you. That's probably the most easy way to get disoriented and not and get lost in your navigation, which is a very huge hazard. That's not to say dead reckoning is bad. It's actually really good, but you want to use a combination of both pilotage and dead reckoning in order to get the most efficient flight planning you can do, or navigation, if you will. There are some things I'm just going to quickly go over. So a lot of people are going to emphasize our magnetic compass. Okay, we have one in our plane, it's required. Okay, and I'm going to be honest with you, I personally haven't used the physical magnetic compass that's on our airplane to navigate. I'm going to say it, okay? But that's not to say, that it's useless and it's not worthwhile. We'll bring up why that's so important that you should know how to use the compass and why it is a huge factor, okay? But there are some errors that come with the magnetic compass, all right? There's UNOs, and variation, deviation. You're gonna hear about these things. I'm gonna quickly gloss over them. Variations, there's some magnetic errors due to the Earth. Deviations have to do with the electronical stuff, messing with the magnetic compass, but we don't have it because of a magnetometer. But once again, that's delving into other things that should be another topic in itself, the magnetic compass. And then UNOs, like when you're turning to the north or turning to the south, and when you're accelerating, decelerating, that's for like ands. And these are just errors that you have to consider. The reason why I bring this up is because the magnetic compass has its problems. It's not completely reliable, and it's also kind of hard to use in comparison to your G1000 heading indicator. Like, I'm just gonna be honest, it's so much easier to use a heading indicator. But we'll go back into this. Remember, magnetic compass has its problems, but it's still important. So go back to this. Some other things I want to say out here. So I've written some aims in here. I've written 91.159, 91.151, 91.103. These are rules, regulations. The reason why I bring them up is because 91.159 is important. So when you're picking your altitudes, when you're doing your flight planning, you're like, what altitude do I want to flight plan? You got to remember some rules you have to follow, okay? And then 91.151 is your fuel requirements, okay? And this is important because even though you only need 30 minutes per day, right? You as a pilot, especially since you're like a rookie and your estimates can be completely wrong and you might not get this completely right, you're gonna want at least an hour of fuel reserves, okay? In your worst case scenario, all right? So you have an extra 30 minutes and that might make or break, whether it might give you more time to stay in the air, all right? That's really important. And then 91.103 is the necessary requirement pre-flight planning action you have to do. And so you don't have to do a lot, okay? But there's important things that I want to emphasize, in which that's why I was talking about, like, you can get away with doing the easy stuff, just the minimum requirements, and then going above and beyond and getting the actual proper flight planning that you need to do in order to properly prepare you. All right? So now we're going into task B here, but before we go into task B, there's some things that I want to highlight. So here on ForeFlight, okay, there's an option. I just made up some random flight plan. You might actually do this. You might actually go to KFAT, okay? And you can, move this around and you can set specific points on here if you want to on your flight plan, and that'll add to it if that made sense to you. But we're not going to do that. We're going to get rid of that. But something I want to show you is if you go here, okay, see this little up arrow, your flights, okay, and you get Navlog here. This will give you a comprehensive briefing on the specific requirements, direction to altitudes. They'll make you do a Navlog. They'll make you do a paper one. They might make you do a paper one. I honestly don't, none of my check rides was required. I was required to do a paper Navlog, and you probably have to do one, but I've never seen actual when you're actually doing a cross country, someone actually, you might for your private ones, but like when you get involved later, this is just something important to take note of and how to actually use this and understand what this stuff is talking about. Okay, this is just something I should bring up. And also, you can also Navlog here and see a short little comprehensive version of the necessary stuff, like how long the leg is going to take, how long it is, the amount of fuel you're burning. ForeFlight is really good at calculating these numbers for you, and that's a really solid feature that you should know and at least understand what these mean, what I say when I'm talking about headings, fuels, and stuff like that. So then when you can apply it to your flight plan. Okay, now we're going to task B. So there's also different kinds of navigations. There's ground-based, satellite-based, and that's using references, whether you're using satellite technology to help you or ground-based technology to help you, is once again up to debate and is another topic in itself of which you should be using, but you can always use a combination. It never hurts to use a combination, but it is always helpful to understand both systems. And this is for redundancy, and this is what we're gonna go into now, okay? So the most important thing I can take away from navigation is everything is a navigation source, all right? Everything. So this not only includes your iPad, which might be known as electronic flight bag, something a terminology you should know. EFB is probably what you know. But your phone is one. I would show you my phone, but I'm using that to record. Your expired sectional chart, believe it or not. Like, although, that's not the most efficient use, but if you have some sectional chart that you have in your bag that you just completely forgot about that you had, but it's in there. You want to, be like all cool and prepared and be like, oh yeah, I got myself a sectional chart, making it seem like you're a real, safety pilot. But like that, even the expired one will be helpful because problems don't occur on a normal flight day, okay? When everything goes right. Problems occur when everything goes wrong, okay? Even during my experiences as I flew, with the high technology and high maintenance that we have here at CAU, when I was first a private pilot, one of my first solo cross countries, my electronic system completely failed on me. Just completely failed, completely black screened it. And that's why it's important that we have these redundancy systems. Of course, it came back on a couple seconds later, and I didn't have to solely rely on my compass, and my and my static systems, which is another argument, another conversation and story. But it's important, that's why I mentioned the compass, because even though your fancy electronic heading indicator, might be easier to follow, and the little flight plan that you put in your G1000, once again, is important to understand, because you're mainly going to be using that during your flight. That's important to understand. But it's also to have these redundancies and these other systems available, because when things fail, you need these options, you need these backups, and be like, oh, how do I get this stuff? Oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? And it's important to do these calculations. It's also important to do your G1000, because when something doesn't go wrong, even if it's not like an electronic failure and you need to deviate or something, and you need to make these calculations on the spot, and you don't have the time to do it on the ground. And that's why I think it's a joke, to be like, oh, let me pull out my your steel regular physical E6B. Let me pull out the papers and start doing calculations. No, it's going to be within minutes that you need to make those calculations, make those diversions. And of course, there's procedures for that, but that's why you have to use the most efficient system and all your resources available to you and make those timely decisions. And that's why it's important to know how to use these quickly and efficiently. There's also some other things like requirements, like your ADSBL within certain airspaces, transponder. Like, you can contact ATC. There's nothing wrong with being like, hey guys, worst case scenario. I'm not saying contact them up just because you feel like it, okay? But like, if you're in an emergency and you're lost, hey, don't feel shy to be like, hey Dower, I'm lost. Like, I know it can be weird and awkward, and that's not even the correct terminology, but it's okay. They'll understand. They're human beings, okay? Another thing I need to emphasize is that, let me look at it here. You can always and it's okay to get flight following. Like, yes, you can simply go VFR all the way over there, and you don't need to talk to anybody, and it might be the easier route. But flight following is important, so that when something does go wrong, you're in contact with the ATC. They know where you are, and things are scheduled, and things go right, okay? So there's nothing wrong with getting flight following from ATC as well. I think that's all my points that I'm gonna wrap up. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Keep at it, keep going strong. You got this, I believe in you.